Imagine a statue. Now, make it big? No, significantly bigger than whatever you are picturing right now in your head.
Oh, way bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are talking about a monument that stands 182 meters tall.
Right. And to put that in perspective for you, that is nearly double the height of the Statue of Liberty in New York.
Wow.
It completely dwarfs the Spring Temple Buddha in China. It is quite literally the tallest statue in the entire world.
And it's located in Gujarat, India.
Exactly. It's known as the Statue of Unity.
It is an absolute colossus, and usually when we build things on this massive scale, it's for a deity or a mythical figure or maybe a founding father whose face is, plastered on every single currency note.
Sure, like Washington or Lincoln.
Right. But this statue is of a man named Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And looking at something that massive, you really have to ask the question, why?
Right, why him?
Yeah, why build a monument of that scale for a man who, let's be honest here, often gets a bit overshadowed in the history books outside of India?
And that really is the central question of our deep dive today. Because when the world thinks of India's freedom struggle, the names that usually leap to mind are Mahatma Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru.
Right, the big two.
Yeah, and Patel is often the third name on that list. He's sort of the silent one of the Freedom Trinity. But the source material we are looking at today, specifically, Hindol Sengupta's book, The Man Who Saved India, argues that this ranking is just a massive historical mistake.
The argument being that without Patel, the physical map of India as we know it today simply wouldn't exist, right?
Exactly. The central thesis of Sengupta's work is that while others provided the philosophy, the vision, Patel provided the physics.
The physics, I like that.
Yeah, he literally prevented a massive subcontinent from fracturing into what the sources call a balkanized mess.
So our mission today is to break that silence. We are going to unpack how this man who actually started out calling Gandhi a crank ended up being the structural engineer of modern India.
It is quite the character arc.
It really is. And I want to start with that dynamic you mentioned, the Trinity, Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, because on paper they seem like people who really shouldn't get along at all, let alone found a nation together.
Oh, they were incredibly different. And understanding that friction between them is really key to understanding the whole movement.
Okay, let's break it down.
Think of it as a strict division of labor. Gandhi was the soul of the movement. He was the spiritual guide, the mass mobilizer, who could take a highly complex political issue and turn it into a clear moral crusade for the public.
And Nehru?
Nehru was the voice. He was the visionary. He was an aristocrat with a sweeping global worldview.
The intellectual.
Right. He was the one writing the elegant prose and looking to the stars. He famously wore that red rose in his buttonhole. Very much a romantic figure.
Which leaves Patel. So if Gandhi is the soul and Nehru is the voice...
Patel was the hands. He was the realist, the absolute executor. Lord Mountbatten, who was the last viceroy of India, actually had a very telling observation about this dynamic.
What did he say?
He noted that while Nehru had his head in the clouds, Patel had his feet firmly on the ground.
That is a stark contrast. Nehru the idealist, Patel the pragmatist.
Precisely. Because Patel was a peasant's son. He was rugged, and he was hyper-observant of the minutiae of the ground. He was a man of very few words.
He wasn't writing the grand poetry?
No, not at all. He didn't write poetry, he wrote ledgers. And there's this fascinating metaphor Patel used to describe his own relationship with Gandhi. He compared himself to Eklavya.
Oh, right. That's a reference to the Mahabharata.
Yes.
For those of you who might not know the epic, Eklavya is this student who learns archery by watching the great guru Dronacharya from afar simply because the guru wouldn't teach him directly.
Correct. And in that story, Eklavya is so devoted that when the guru asks for his thumb as a fee, which effectively ruins his career as an archer, just to ensure the favorite student, Arjuna, remains the absolute best, Eklavya gives it without a second of hesitation.
And Patel actually saw himself as Eklavya. That implies a lot about his view of his own position in the movement.
It really does. He viewed Nehru as the Arjuna figure, the favorite student, the one clearly destined for glory. Patel didn't claim to be the favorite.
But he was devoted.
Exactly. He learned through sheer devotion and distance. And he was completely willing to sacrifice his thumb, meaning his own career, his ambition for the guru's cause.
That is a very heavy self-conception. It suggests he knowingly sacrificed his own legacy.
He did. And it's actually one of the primary reasons he is so much less known today.
Because he didn't leave a paper trail.
Exactly. Unlike Nehru or Gandhi, Patel wrote very little. He actually destroyed his letters and kept almost no personal records. His philosophy was basically, why not create history rather than waste time writing it?
Why not create history rather than waste time writing it? Wow, it definitely explains the lack of source material compared to the others.
It is.
But he wasn't born this devoted follower. I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier he called Gandhi a crank. Let's dig into that.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. If we go back to 1916, the version of Patel we meet is completely unrecognizable. He wasn't a freedom fighter at all. He was a high-status barrister in Ahmedabad,
Making good money.
earning an absolute fortune. He wore these sharp, very expensive Western suits. He was so fastidious about his appearance that he actually sent his stiff collars all the way to Bombay just to get them washed properly.
Wait, he sent his laundry to another city?
He did. That was the level of elite lifestyle he was living.
So he's a fancy city lawyer, fully integrated into the British colonial system.
Completely entrenched in it. He spent his evenings playing bridge at the exclusive Gujarat Club. And there's this famous incident where someone came rushing into the club to tell the members that Mohandas Gandhi was coming to speak.
And how did Patel react?
He didn't even look up from his cards. He just sneered and said, "Go away, we don't want to listen to your Gandhi."
That is a harsh dismissal. So how do you go from go away to I'll cut off my thumb for you? What changed?
Well, it wasn't the spirituality that got him. It was the action. Patel was a man of action above all else. He watched Gandhi during the Champaran agitation, where Gandhi stood up for the indigo farmers.
Yeah.
And he saw Gandhi directly defying British orders, risking arrest, and actually getting concrete things done. That bravery, that effectiveness, really appealed to the pragmatist in Patel.
He realized Gandhi wasn't just talking, he was actually effective.
Exactly. And the transformation for Patel was incredibly physical. There's a moment where he just decides to go all in.
What does he do?
He takes all those beautiful Western clothes, 12 suits, 250 stiff collars, his neckties, and he throws them all into a giant bonfire.
It burns them all.
Burns them all. He switched permanently to khadi, the homespun cotton. He later said that wearing foreign clothes was like a parrot refusing to leave its cage.
That is a total reversal of his identity.
Yeah.
But looking at the timeline in our sources, before he even got deep into national politics with Gandhi, he already showed this streak of, I guess you could call it, intense practical heroism.
You're talking about the plague.
Yes, I was reading about the plague in Ahmedabad. This really struck me.
The plague of 1917. This is where Patel really proved his mettle, long before the history books started paying attention to him. While most of the city elite fled to safety, Patel stayed behind.
He was a municipal councilor at the time, right?
He was.
Yeah.
And he didn't just sit in an office giving orders, he walked the streets. He was personally cleaning sewers, disinfecting areas, actively managing the crisis. He risked his life daily for his city.
It seems like that experience, dealing with the plague, dealing with the messy reality of the municipality, sort of trained him for the bigger fights ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
It established his reputation not as a politician, but as a leader who actually stood by his people when things got incredibly ugly.
It taught him how to organize people in a crisis. And that brings us right to the Kheda Satyagraha in 1918. This was really his major debut on the national stage.
Remind us of the stakes there.
The issue was that massive floods had destroyed the local crops, but the British government was stubbornly still demanding full taxes from the farmers.
The classic colonial squeeze.
Right. So Gandhi took up the cause, but he knew he needed a deputy. He needed someone tough to run the day-to-day logistics on the ground. He chose Patel.
And this is where we really see that dynamic emerge, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Gandhi was the good cop. He was the moral force, the saint. Patel was the bad cop,
The enforcer.
the hardcore organizer. He told the villagers to hide their cattle, hide their valuables, so the British physically couldn't confiscate them. He stiffened their spines.
There's a great story in the notes about a confrontation with a British official, Commissioner Pratt.
Oh, that is a brilliant moment. Pratt tried to divide the movement by praising Gandhi to the farmers. He called Gandhi a saint, a holy man, but then dismissed him as someone who didn't understand the realities of politics or land revenue.
Trying to say, listen to me, I'm the expert. Gandhi is just a dreamer in the clouds.
Exactly. But Patel was right there in the room. And Patel used Pratt's own words against him.
What does she say?
He turned to the villagers and said, look, even the British commissioner thinks Gandhi is a saint. So if you follow the saint's advice, you can't possibly go wrong.
That is brilliant.
He completely flipped the script on Pratt. It totally solidified the farmers' resolve.
It's clever. He used their own colonial arrogance against them. But, there is another story in the source material that sounds straight out of a spy thriller. the king of Borsod.
Yes, 1923.
This takes the whole bad cop idea to a completely new level. Let's unpack this.
It was a bizarre situation. The government imposed a hefty punitive tax on all the villagers in Borsod. The stated reason was to pay for extra police protection against dacoits, which are armed bandits.
So the government's logic was, we can't protect you, so we're going to charge you more money to hire more guys who also probably can't protect you.
It was actually worse than that.
Yeah.
And Patel didn't just protest the tax, he investigated.
Right.
He set up an entire underground network of spies and informers.
Mm-hmm.
And what he discovered was absolutely scandalous. The police were actually in cahoots with the dacoits.
That is a massive level of corruption.
Oh, it was deep. The police were supplying the bandits with ammunition and then secretly sharing the loot. So the new tax was essentially just funding the corruption.
And Patel caught them.
He exposed the whole thing. He laid out the hard evidence publicly. The government was so humiliated they had to scrap the tax immediately. Gandhi was so impressed he hailed Patel as the king of Borsod.
This brings up a point that I think is really important for us to highlight in this deep dive. Because we often think of nonviolent resistance satyagraha as just marching and fasting.
Right, the moral appeal.
Yeah, but Patel brought this entirely different element of intelligence gathering, of hard strategy.
That is the key nugget right there. Patel wasn't just marching. He was outthinking the administration at every turn. And nowhere is this clearer than in the Bardoli Satyagraha of 1928.
This is the event that earned him the title Sardar, right?
Yes, which means chief or leader.
Set the scene for us. What were the stakes in Bardoli?
The government suddenly hiked land revenue taxes by a whopping 30%. And it was based on completely flawed data.
What kind of data?
They claimed the farmers were prosperous because they noticed they had more bullock carts. It was ridiculous logic.
So what was Patel's strategy? Did he just call for a general strike?
He was way more calculated than that. He didn't jump in immediately. First, he made the villagers fully commit. He warned them. He said, this is going to be incredibly hard. They will take your land. They will take your buffaloes.
He wanted them to know the true cost before they started.
Exactly. Then he built that intelligence network again. This is a crucial detail Sengupta emphasizes. Patel had informers deep inside the British administration. He literally knew what the government was planning before they did.
That's an incredible tactical advantage.
Huge. And he coupled that intelligence with a total social boycott. This part is fascinating. He organized the villages so effectively that government officials suddenly couldn't get food, they couldn't find transport, they couldn't even get a local barber to shave them. The local Indian officials, who were the eyes and ears of the British government, actually resigned in protest because they were being totally ostracized by their own communities.
So he effectively shut down the state's entire ability to function on a daily basis.
He paralyzed the empire in that district.
And the result?
Government cracked. They had to roll back the tax hike significantly. It was a massive victory. It proved once and for all that nonviolent non-cooperation could actually break the administration's back if it was organized with military precision.
And that military precision clearly came from Patel. But, while we discuss these massive public victories, the source material also dives deep into his personal life.
It does.
And honestly, it paints a picture of a man who was incredibly hard on himself and just as hard on those around him.
It is a difficult aspect of his character to grapple with. Patel was a man of extreme, hard pragmatism, and that absolutely extended to his private life.
Tell the passport story. I found that very revealing.
All right, this is an anecdote about his passport from years before he even met Gandhi. He had saved enough money, working tirelessly, to finally go to England for law school. He worked so hard for this dream. The papers finally arrived, but they were addressed simply to Vijay Patel.
Which were his initials, Vallabhbhai Javarbai Patel.
Right, but they were also the exact initials of his older brother, Vithalbhai.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and Vithalbhai saw the official papers and said, I am the elder brother. I should go first. If you go, my chance will be gone forever.
And what did Patel do? I mean, did he fight for it? It was his money?
He silently gave up his chance. He just handed his brother the papers and all the money he had painstakingly saved. And he stayed behind and waited 3 more years to go himself.
That is extreme duty.
It really defines his core character. Extreme sacrifice for the elder, whether that elder was his brother or later on Gandhi. But this hardness took a severe toll on his family.
Particularly his daughter, Manaben. The notes on her are really poignant. She basically became his secretary, didn't she?
She did. She lived a life of utter austerity, spinning her own clothes, serving him constantly. He was a very distant father. There is a quote in the book where he tells her, "Poverty is not something at which one should be sorry."
That's tough.
It is. And later in life, Manabin actually confessed to someone that because she was raised without demonstrated love, her mother died when she was very young, she felt she'd become a witch.
Oh, man. That is a devastating thing to say about yourself.
It is.
It really highlights the severe personal cost of that level of unwavering public service.
It shows the trade-off. Patel gave everything to the nation, leaving very little warmth for his own home. And that cold pragmatism also extended to how he viewed money and business.
Which was very different from the socialists in the Congress Party.
Exactly. Nehru and others were very suspicious of capitalism and the big industrialists.
Right.
But Patel was a realist. He strongly believed India needed to create wealth before it could possibly distribute it. He became the chief fundraiser for the Congress.
He dealt with the big money.
Yes, he dealt with the big industrialists like the Burles. When people challenged him about the contradiction of a poor people's movement taking money from the ultra-rich, Patel famously said, "Gandhi is a Mahatma. I am not. I have to do the job."
Gandhi is a Mahatma. I am not. I have to do the job. That really seems to be his ultimate motto.
It was.
Which leads us directly to the biggest job of all. 1947, independence.
And the absolute potential disaster that came with it. We tend to forget this today, but when the British left, they didn't leave behind one single unified India.
Right.
They left British India, and then they left over 500 princely states.
500. And these weren't just tiny little estates. Some of them had their own armies, their own railways, their own postal stamps.
Exactly. States like Hyderabad and Kashmir were physically larger than many European countries. And the British essentially gave them the option to join India, join Pakistan, or technically to just remain fully independent.
So India could have easily fractured into that balkanized mess we mentioned earlier?
You would have had a map full of gaping holes. It would have been impossible to govern.
So how did Patel fix this? This is where that Iron Man title really comes into play.
Well, while Nehru was focused on the idea of India, the high philosophy of it, Patel focused on the hard geography. He used a masterclass mix of diplomacy and sheer coercion.
What was his strategy?
He famously said his goal was liquidating the princely states without liquidating the princes.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning he offered them generous privy purses, which were annual payments, and let them keep their royal titles, but he totally stripped them of their actual ruling power.
And if they resisted?
Well, he wasn't afraid to use hard force. When the Nawab of Junagadh tried to join Pakistan, despite being geographically smack in the middle of Gujarat, Patel acted. Or when the Nizam of Hyderabad tried to stay independent with a private militia that was terrorizing local people, Patel sent in the Indian army.
He didn't hesitate.
Not for a second. It's interesting, the source mentions that the Soviet premier, Nikolai Bulganin, was absolutely amazed by this achievement.
The Soviet premier, what did he say?
Bulganin noted that Patel achieved this massive integration mostly without a civil war, which he considered a significantly greater feat than Bismarck's unification of Germany.
Wow.
It is arguably Patel's greatest lasting legacy. He physically drew the map.
But this brings us to the big what-if question that history buffs always love to debate. And Sengupta's book spends time on this. What if Patel had been the first prime minister instead of Nehru?
It is the great counterfactual of modern Indian history. And it is worth noting here, the source material delves into these differing political perspectives, and we're just reporting on his historical analysis, obviously not taking a side.
Of course, just looking at the history.
Right. The source highlights some very significant differences in their worldviews. Patel was much more deeply wary of China and Pakistan than Nehru was at the time.
He saw threats where Nehru saw neighbors.
Yes. For instance, he explicitly warned Nehru against taking the Kashmir issue to the United Nations, predicting correctly that it would just get stuck there indefinitely. He strongly advocated for a decisive military response when necessary.
And economically.
Economically, he vehemently opposed nationalization without prior industrialization. He deeply feared that simply having the government run everything would lead to severe economic stagnation.
Which some would argue is exactly what happened in the decades following independence with the License Raj.
Many economists make exactly that argument today.
So why wasn't he prime minister? I mean, he was the master organizer, the strong man, the one who completely held the party purse strings.
In 1946, the provincial Congress committees actually overwhelmingly nominated Patel for president of the Congress. And whoever held that post was going to be the first prime minister.
He had the votes.
He had the votes. But Gandhi intervened. Gandhi explicitly asked Patel to step aside in favor of Nehru.
And just like with his brother in the passport.
He stepped aside, without a public fight. He valued the unity of the fragile new nation over his own personal ambition. He knew a public split between him and Nehru would destroy the infant country before it even started.
So he settled for deputy prime minister.
He did.
It's a moment of immense frustration for his supporters, clearly, but also a moment of immense nobility.
There really is. And it brings us right back to our intro.
Why the statue? Why build it now?
Think of it this way. Gandhi provided the soul. Nehru provided the voice. Patel provided the skeleton and the muscles. He literally built the borders, the administration, the daily stability.
Sengupta argues that modern India basically owes its physical existence to Patel.
Yes, but for a very long time, he was minimized in the textbooks. History belongs to the tall, as the saying goes.
Or maybe history belongs to those who write it.
Exactly. Remember, Patel didn't write. He created. And for decades, the historical narrative was dominated by the Gandhi-Nehru lineage. The massive Statue of Unity is, in many ways, a modern attempt to physically correct that history, to force the world to finally look at the man who was kept in the background.
It's a literal and figurative reclaiming of historical space.
It is. And, I want to leave you with one final image from the sources that really captures his complexity.
Well, let's hear it.
There was a moment where a photographer asked Patel to pose for a portrait. Now remember, this is Patel ruthlessly unifying the map, sending armies to Hyderabad, integrating hundreds of states. The photographer wanted a picture of him with a clenched fist, to capture the Iron Man persona.
And what did Patel do?
He completely refused. He asked instead to be shown with a friendly, open gesture. Even as he was forging a nation with cold steel, he deeply wanted to be seen as a friend.
That is quite the paradox. The peasant king, the silent unifier.
The man who saved India, not with poetry, but with a ledger and a will of iron.
And a very, very large statue. That is it for this deep dive into the life of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. We hope you learned something entirely new about the man standing behind the monument. Thanks for listening.